Being confident in Fortnite is absolutely critical. Without confidence, you're afraid to go for fights, you're afraid to improve at the game, and really just nothing is going to work out. Confidence is such an underrated factor, and that's why in today's video, guys, I'll be showing you guys exactly how to build confidence like crazy in Fortnite. Before we get into it, if you find this video helpful, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more, and of course, it's really appreciated if you could use code TECHO in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, it only takes a few seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. So as always, thank you so much for using it if you're using it. But with that said, let's get into it. So the first major tip that I have for you guys when it comes to building confidence in Fortnite is to stop caring about your stats. Worrying about your stats such as losing arena points, getting a worse KD, not getting the win, and all sorts of stuff like that is only going to stop you from improving at the game and make you less confident in fights. The thing that you really need to consider when it comes to caring about your stats is that you can always gain your stats back in the future. Let's say, for example, you're playing arena and you're just trying to improve solely, you're pushing every single fight, and you end up losing the majority of your fights. When it really comes down to it, what you need to consider is who cares? Really, the impact that losing games has on your stats really just isn't that much. And even if you do lose a lot of stats, you can easily gain them back in the future once you improve and just become a better player. Worrying about your stats right now is only going to make you nervous when you really have nothing to lose. When you're in fights, you're constantly going to be worrying about what is going to happen if I lose, my stats are going to get worse, everything's going to just be destroyed. And really what I'm trying to say here is that if you stop worrying about your stats and stressing out about that, you're going to improve much more at the game and you won't be nearly as nervous when you run into a fight and you feel like you're losing. You'll have that ability to push fights confidently and really just recognize that you have nothing to lose. Of course, there is a level of caring about your stats that's going to happen in something like a tournament. For example, if you're in like a solo victory cup and you're trying to qualify for round 2, of course you're going to be a little bit nervous if you're on game 10 and you're trying to clutch up. But when it comes to any form of practice like arena, a public match, or even just creative, there's really no reason to worry about what's going to happen with your score, with your stats, with your points, or anything like that. So if you find yourself worrying about that kind of stuff, the biggest piece of advice I can really give you is just that there's nothing to lose. Even if you lose, even if everything goes wrong, it's fine. You can queue right back up and you'll be all good. Getting into our second tip though, and this one is to get used to high pressure situations. Now, a lot of times in Fortnite, whether it's arena, whether it's a tournament, or even just a regular match, you're gonna run into a lot of situations that are simply just new to you. You'll run into new items, you'll run into different types of playstyles, and overall, you're gonna get nervous simply because some things are just gonna be new. Not only are things gonna be new, but a lot of them are simply just high pressure. Think something like an end game or a fight with multiple players in it or anything like that. The biggest piece of advice I can give you guys here is that if you get nervous in a certain situation, say you're in arena, a tournament, or even something in creative and you're getting nervous, then the best thing you can do for your confidence is to put yourself into those situations more. The reason I give you guys this advice is because being in a situation over and over again simply just gets you numb to it in a way. For example, let's say you're in a high pressure fight, you're boxed up and somebody's pushing your wall. Chances are somebody who's been in this situation 5 times is still going to be getting nervous over it. But if you've been in this situation 100 different times, you know exactly what to do, what edits to make, you're going to be in a much better situation. Even if you do struggle and you end up losing in one of these high pressure situations, simply being familiar with them and just being in the situation over and over again is a powerful way to build confidence. And this kind of ties back into not caring about your stats because in the end, what happens if you lose? You queue back up, you get into another game, maybe you lose some virtual points, but ultimately you're fine. So in those high pressure situations, just consider that you have nothing to lose, and if you find yourself getting very nervous in a particular situation, then take the time to specifically seek out that situation. That way you can get used to it and just have it in your mind how to actually play those situations. And overall, by doing all of that, you should find those high pressure situations that you're currently nervous about becoming much easier over time. And that in turn will make you a more confident player. Now, the third tip for this video, and an absolutely critical one when it comes to becoming more confident, is to change your perspective on losing. A lot of people in Fortnite have a very extreme view of what losing actually means. As I've implied numerous times in this video, losing literally has no impact on your life. You queue up into another game and you forget about it in 5 minutes. But for some reason, in the moment when we're about to lose or we're in a situation where we're kind of thinking we might lose, and when we're in those situations where we feel like we're going to lose, we tend to just have this perspective of like, I guess just being excessively worried about it is the way to put it. But really, in the end, losing in Fortnite is not going to have any further impact on your life. It won't change anything. And as I've said, you're just going to queue back up and you'll be fine. The thing to consider here is that you need to lose to improve. The reason that people become insanely good at Fortnite is because they make mistakes. They figure out what mistakes they make though, and they basically change those mistakes and make them into strong points. If you're not able to lose in Fortnite, if you're not able to accept a loss and go figure out what you did wrong, then you're going to have no idea what aspects of your game to improve and how to actually get better. And in turn, you're basically going to be in a constant cycle of not being confident as well as not improving at the game. So overall, my biggest piece of advice here is to take your losses in stride, accept that you made a mistake, and VOD review your games. If you're not familiar with it, VOD reviewing is something I talk about all the time on the channel, and it basically means just taking taking one of your games that you lost and looking back at it to figure out what you did right, what you did wrong, and what your opponent did right and wrong as well. Being willing to lose, being willing to accept the loss, and being able to actually take that loss and figure out what to improve on is absolutely one of the most important traits of any good player. And when you don't have this crazy perspective on losing where it's some devastating thing that you're trying to avoid, you're really able to just go into fights with so much more confidence. You'll feel better about yourself, and overall you're just gonna have a much better time when you're in fights. Because even if you're not the best player, even if you feel like you're gonna lose a fight, you can still go into that fight with confidence, knowing that in the worst case scenario you're gonna improve at the game, and the best case scenario you're gonna win the game. So overall it turns into a win-win situation, and that is a mentality that is so important when it comes to building confidence. So all in all, guys, learn from your losses, be willing to take losses and accept them, and you'll become a better player as a result. Moving on to my last tip for today's video, guys, and this last one is simply to practice and improve. A really big piece of being confident in Fortnite is really just knowing that you're a good player. A lot of things like not worrying about your stats and getting used to high pressure situations and having a good perspective on losing are absolutely critical when it comes to having confidence. But at a certain point, you're really just going to need to be a good player just to know that you can win fights. Now, of course, learning how to practice and improve is basically the entire point of my YouTube channel. That's pretty much every single video I make. But there are a few different things that I recommend specifically for building confidence. One of the first things I recommend in terms of your practice to become more confident is to practice 1v1s against very high skilled players. The reason I recommend this is because you're going to run into a variety of players in game. You'll run into a very small amount of total beginners who you can easily stomp on. You'll run into a lot of intermediate players who are pretty good but not crazy. And then that little percentage of players are going to be absolutely insane and just clobber everybody in their way. And what you want to do is you really want to be familiar with those higher level playstyles and with those really good players. Having experience against those players is going to serve you so well in game, because once you run into that type of player and you recognize that somebody is good, it's not going to be anything unlike what you've done in the past. While most players are going to have no idea what these people are trying to do and just get absolutely clobbered, you'll at least have that confidence and level of knowing that, okay, I've been against this type of player before and I can counter it. And as well as that, and arguably the more important part, is that every other player becomes easier than the people you practice against. When your standard of practice is so high, when you go against good players all the time, the types of players that you'll run into most of the time, like the intermediate to maybe lower level advanced players, are gonna just seem so much easier because they're easier than the people you fight against in creative. Now, of course, you don't have to go against crazy players every single time you practice, but going against people around or above your skill level is definitely helpful. Just learning how to adapt to a higher level playstyle and become a better player is something that'll help you so much. As well as that, another big piece of advice here is to grind out mechanical maps, aim maps, etc. to become more confident and basically comfortable with your mechanics. When you're in a fight, a lot of the times you're gonna get a little bit shaky and a little bit nervous, and that's gonna mess with your mechanics. But when you have everything dialed in, you know how to do your piece control, you know how to tunnel properly, get away and heal, you know you can hit your shots, you're just gonna be in such a better situation when you're in those higher pressure situations. And lastly, guys, the final tip I have for this section is simply to not be afraid to move out of your comfort zone. A lot of things you're gonna do in Fortnite are gonna be uncomfortable, but those uncomfortable things are going to be what makes you improve the most. So when you're in those nerve-wracking situations, when you're against somebody who's really good and all that sort of stuff, that is the stuff that makes you improve. Going against people you can easily beat and winning every single game is not going to make you improve at the game. Instead, getting whacked every single time and basically having to constantly climb up that mountain to improve and reach the level that you're trying to reach is what's actually going to build that confidence that you want to have in game. So overall, guys, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to push yourself out of your comfort zone, do things that you don't usually do, and you'll be way more confident in those comfortable situations. And even those uncomfortable situations are slowly going to turn helpful as you get used to them. So overall, guys, hopefully that helps you out. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to build insane confidence in Fortnite Chapter 4. Overall, this 4-step process should help you guys so much when it comes to becoming a more confident player. First off, stop worrying about your stats. Second, get used to high pressure situations and put yourself against those good players that you're nervous against. Third, understand that every game is a win-win situation. Either you win, which is fantastic, or you lose, which is going to allow you to figure out what you did wrong and improve. And finally, guys, simply practice and continue to improve at the game, and you'll find your confidence improving solely based on that as well. Overall, though, hopefully this video helped you all out. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like. Consider subscribing as well if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Fortnite tips and tricks content just like this in the future. And of course, it's really appreciated if you would use code TECHO in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, and it seriously does help me out a bunch, so thank you so much to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.